Hello, my friends and fellow health advocates. I look forward to talking to you all today. I really look forward to talking to you about this subject. It's really a big one that I find it's very important, and I'm going to give everyone a chance to come on today. I was really excited about this. I was actually getting ready even a little early for it for a change, because I was so prepared for it and so ready to give this talk, because this has been a subject I've been really interested in for the last, month, probably month and a half, somewhere around that, since I bought one of Dr. Jensen's books that explains this great topic. So I've been really excited about it. There's some people coming on to see me already, and Andon and Nola and Annette and Lisa. Hello, guys. Hello. And Andon said hello. Yeah, I am sorry if I can't pronounce your name correctly. I do my best I can with my southern accent, But yeah, I'm gonna give some people a chance to see that I'm live and see that I'm getting ready to have the presentation, and maybe they'll come on and they can start listening to me. But I hope everyone is getting prepared for the end of the year, and everyone is getting ready for the time they can spend with their families during the holidays. And I really do wish you all such a wonderful Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and however you choose to celebrate it. I just hope that you have an enjoyable end of the year celebration, and you can really just have a moment to just reflect back on the year with gratitude and appreciation, for your ups and your downs, not just the best times. We got to take it all as one big package, and be appreciative for it all, But yeah, I'm just allowing people to come on, and I was just saying hi to you guys, and just giving a little bit of time for some people to see that I'm live, and then we're going to get this thing started. But yeah, I'm going to give a chance at the end for any of you, if you have any questions about it or anything, you can feel free to ask, of course. Because this is such a big topic, and I imagine it's a new subject for a lot of you. So I'm going to give a little small opportunity, maybe 10, 20 minutes, if any of you have a few questions. I know it's not a lot of time, but I don't want to make this a Q&A as well as a as a topic video. I just figure if any of you have some real a few questions that you might want me to answer, I can maybe take a little bit of time to do that. But the rest of the video, I want to go over this great topic. But okay, I have 5 people on now, and there's Lavia. Hello, guys. Okay, good. I have enough people on now that I'll get started. Well, this has been something that I've been really interested in because of my love of iridology. This whole year I've really gotten into my love of studying detox and health, and then I've been really working on diving deeper into understanding iridology more, because I find it so fascinating, and I really enjoy giving iridology readings all the time, and really helping people with it. And I started to notice, by being someone that does iridology so much, just like Dr. Morris and Dr. Jensen and all these people that do iridology on a daily basis, most of the time. I don't do it every single day, but almost every day, because I'm always having someone else's eye reading that is coming up on the schedule, and I want to try to stay on top of my readings the best I can. And so I keep on researching and studying as I've been going, because it's such a in-depth and amazing topic that is so big and thorough, that I just wanted to keep on reading and studying. And so I started, first, just a second, let me grab this book. I've showed this to people many times, this iridology book by Dr. Jensen, the Iridology, the Science and Practice and the Healing Arts, Volume 2. This is the one, see, I have it all tabbed out with all the different, glandular, digestive system, reproductive, marking in the iris, and this is where I started reading so much about all these very interesting things that Dr. Jensen talked about. And it was just really interesting, some of these subjects that he mentioned that I had not heard Dr. Morris and other health, pioneers back in those days, talk about these things enough. And it was just really interesting. And so then I kept looking into other books that Dr. Jensen had, when I really liked his studies and his research. And when I seen that, I remembered that there was something I read in that book that caught my attention. and it was talking about what the neural arch reflex is. And he gave like a little summary of it, but it wasn't nothing real thorough. But then I found out that Dr. Jensen also does have a couple of bowel books on the digestive system and the bowels. And one of them was called Dr. Jensen's Guide to Better Bowel Care. This is the book that I was inspired to talk about this subject, because it really goes in depth about the neural arch reflex. And he talks about, of course, I'm fixing to read some of it to you to explain to you in his words why he called it his greatest discovery. You know, and to hear Dr. Jensen say that, when considered how much he was, you know, he had such great progress with developing and being such a great pioneer in the United States with iridology, to hear him say that this topic I'm fixing to talk to you about is his greatest discovery, you know, that's pretty amazing in my book, you know, just because, you know, that's a very strong use of words, you know. But yeah, it's in chapter 4 of his book, and you know, and see, this is how it looks. The word, the neural arch reflex. That's what, you know, which you know, you see, I wrote it up there too. I'm being a little redundant, you know. But okay, I want to start reading some of what he says that a neural arch is. So here's the part that, you know, listen pretty closely, and you'll hear what it is, you know. I was just going to say hi to a few more people. Livia, Amy was here. Hello, Amy. And Alexandra said, can't wait to watch tomorrow. Well, thank you, Alexandra. You know, I look forward to you being able to watch it tomorrow, you know. And then, okay, and then now I'll keep going. I just wanted to say hello to these few people. All right, this is the part where it starts getting good to explain, you know, what's going on. He said, to learn more about the bowel reflex, which I named the neural arch reflex, I began to study embryology. And he said, I learned that by the second week of formation, the embryo takes shape of the primitive gut tube, and its nervous system begins to form. That means that the bowel tissue and nerve tissue are very intimately related. So all goes back to our nervous system, you know, and how everything is connected. You know, and he says, see figure 4.1 on page 91. And that's what I'm fixing to show you now. Is I wish I had slides in the Facebook Live and I could show you easier. But here's what it looks like. You know, see, you see that black area. Let me show you. Let me get my pencil like Dr. Morse does. He tries to do this on his videos too, because we're not always set up the best. But see that black area, that's the primitive gut tube, and then see, that's the heart bud coming off of it, and then the liver, see, and it buds out from that. Now remember this picture when I'm fixing to tell you what it says, you know, and you'll understand more why this picture is very important for you to understand it. He says, by the 4th week, buds such as the liver bud and the lung bud begin to bulge out from the gut and nerve tissue. By the 6th week, most of the organ buds begin to form. These organ buds, I suddenly noticed, are covered with membrane made up of the same tissue that formed the bowel and nerve tissue in the earlier embryo. This was when I realized that the tissue of the primitive gut surrounds each organ with a membrane. All of a sudden it came to me. This is how the genetic weakness of the mother and father are passed down to the children through the gut and nerve tissue that becomes the membrane covering the organs. Where the bowel has an inherent weakness, the organ that developed from that area of the bowel also has an inherent weakness. This is the key to the neural arch syndrome. I could now see how certain areas of the bowel were reflexly related to specific organs. Any genetic weakness in the bowel could affect the performance of the organ associated with that part of the bowel. Toxicity or nutrient depletion in one would affect the other. This makes that part of the bowel and the organ more subject to breakdown and consecutively to diseases. I refer to genetically weak tissue as an inherent weakness. And most of my students and patients understand that by an inherently weak organ, I mean an organ that is more vulnerable to nutrient depletion and toxic accumulances than normal organs. See, that's the whole key to genetics that is passed down from our parents. You see, we do have genetic weaknesses. That's what makes the whole study of genetics very confusing to people. It's because, yes, you do have genetic weaknesses that you inherit from your parents, but it can be changed, as Bruce Lipton has taught us all in the last 30 years, is that it can be changed through your diet, your lifestyle, and even your thoughts and your emotions. Yeah, and I'm going to get to that part in what Dr. Jensen talks about that too, even well before, Bruce Lipton talked about it, But he goes on. I don't want to read all of this because I want it to be, more me talking than just me reading something to you. But he has such elegant words in the way he uses it that it's sometimes more enjoyable for me just to read the section to you and you hear it for yourself than me just sit here and explain it to you, And then he goes on and he said that the neural arch reflex occurs when a portion of the bowel is irritated by the toxins associated with stagnant, putrefactive debris, and abrevant nerve impulses are transmitted via nervous pathways to a remote area. These impulses cause symptoms to occur reflexly in the remote area. In other words, there is a relationship between certain organs, glands, and tissues and a certain part of the bowel. There was a relationship between the dirty bowel pocket I saw on my x-ray and the symptoms I was experiencing in my hip and leg. Treating the hip and leg with various therapies did nothing to get to the root of the problem. See, that's what he goes on to say in here that's so powerful, is that it causes mimicking pains, where it makes you think that you are having a problem in that area and that you really need to treat that area. You need to go after that area because that's where we think the problem is because we're having pains in that area. But it's really not coming from that. It's coming from your bowels, where the original genetic weakness is. And he said, as long as the colon condition remained untreated, the symptoms persisted. The neural arch reflex is a perfect example of why the bowel is the king of eliminative channels. And then he goes on, moving on a little bit more in this amazing chapter. This chapter 4 of this book was pretty much the reason why I like this book so much. Just that one chapter, it was so powerful, which I'm not taking anything away from the rest of the book, but this was the main reason why I bought the book. And he goes on and he says that a common example of the neural arch reflex is seen with the heart problems. And this is something that I have so many people in this world that I give eye readings to, that every time I tell them you have a chronic neural arch weakness in your heart area, they will automatically, because heart disease is the #1 killer in the world. And you'll have people that they'll come back to me and they'll be like, Dad, does that mean I have something I have to worry about getting a heart attack and all these things, because we can have a tendency to have anxiety and worry about these conditions that can develop in our bodies when we really are overthinking about them. We're over worried about them, when sometimes that worry is causing more of the problem than even what's really going on, because we just don't understand these things well enough, because you'll see what I mean. He says, a common example of the neural arch reflex is seen with the heart problems. Diverticulum, or bowel pocketing, located midway down the descending colon, can reflexly interfere with nerve impulses to the heart, resulting in arrhythmias. And you see this quite often. You really do, because I'm going to show you in a minute why this is so common. I'll show you in just a second. Also, diverticulum are excellent collection sites that can produce gas from fermentation. They trap trash and buildup and mucus and congestion, and then the parasites come in there and they get in there too, and they're trying to clean it up, and it causes all this fermentation and biofilms and just all this trash that gets in those little folds and pockets and things like that that can happen in our colon. And it says any emergency room attendant will tell you about the large number of people who arrive believing they are experiencing a coronary when in fact their troubles stem from intestinal gas pressures that are reflexly affecting the heart. Symptoms associated with the bowel irritation can manifest in the heart, but in such a case, there is nothing wrong with the heart itself. See, that's what he just kept going on. He gave several different examples of how people several different times. Like I'll give one that you ladies can relate to, because I know this mostly probably who I have listening to me. So this will be one that you guys can relate to. He said, another example is the nerve interference that can result from chronic irritation at the sigmoid flexure of the colon. That's, of course, your sigmoid is one of the very last. It's actually like the little bend that goes down at the very bottom, and then it forms the rectum at the tail end of it, and then your anus at the end. It said in females, the reflex area most associated with this is the ovaries. And see, that elbow right there is where a lot of trash will get built up. And the reason why that's very ironic is because the sigmoid and the anus, they have a feature where all of the waste, it goes through the digestive system and it comes down to the sigmoid and it compacts. And it compacts so that it can get all the water and all the fluid out of it, and it compacts and it actually forms the actual stool in that area. But what's so bad about it is that because it compacts and it stays in that area longer than a lot of us even realize, that it has a tendency for all of those acids and stuff to irritate those tissues more than normal, because it's compacting. It's almost like it's concentrating it. And in a way it is. And so that's another reason why sometimes those areas, that's why so many people, they'll get rectum cancers and, you know, all of those different cancers. And it's because, and it radiates those concentration of toxins and poisons out into the whole pelvis and the groin and the reproductive organs. And that's what he says right here. So let me continue. I just have to, that's why I like reading it, is because I can also give you a little bit of my commentary in there with it, you know. And he says, in females, the reflex area most associated with this is the ovaries. I know from experience that an ovarian condition or menstrual problem is associated with this. I cannot help but wonder how many doctors think of the bowel when their patients complain of these troubles. See, that's what I'm getting at, is that, see, most of the females are having issues in their ovaries, not just from, the issue is not in the ovaries itself, it's from the bowel causing a weakness in the ovary. If you fix the bowel, fix that area of weakness and congestion that's not only in the flow of, not only in the channel where the waste flows, but in the tissue itself. See, that's what we have to realize about the colon and the bowels, is it's not just the waste that flows through there and how clean we get that area, but it's also all of the acids and mucus and congestion that's formed in the actual wall and the tissue itself of those organs. And then also all those weaknesses they're associated with that's been passed down from when we were, you know, growing in our mom's womb. And you know, it goes on so several times. It says, when you step on the tail of a cat, the other end yells, does it not? Do you now understand why the liver might yell if a section of the colon is irritated? As the pipe organ we referred to earlier, inharmonious situations arising at the console will result in discord manifesting at remote locations. We are not divorced from our roots, and our internal organs are never completely independent of the bowel from which they emerged in the course of their development. The neural arch reflex occurs most frequently when the tissues that are neurologically associated with a pocketed section of the bowel are inherently weaker than normal. And areas of inherent weakness are areas of the body in which toxic materials finally settle and accumulate and infections develop. We can have problems in any various parts of the body, and invariably these infections are induced by irritations or problems in the bowel due to the neural arch reflex. In my studies over the last 45 years, I have found a striking correlation between conditions in the sections of the bowel and conditions in other specific parts of the body. For example, when a patient complains of a breast condition, there is a certain place in the bowel that I suspect harbors a low-grade infection that is affecting the breast area. The following cases can further demonstrate the relationship more. And see, that's what he says. He says right down here, he says, what the doctor sees but does not recognize. You know, see, does not recognize. And see, he goes on and he gives way more examples of those situations where we can just have things that are going on in our bodies, and people, they don't really stop and think that the bowel is the king and the bowel is the problem, and that's where it all is originating in, because that's where all these weaknesses are coming from. And that's also, so you have to also remember too that because we have those genetic weaknesses that we were born with, but then they're very sensitive to damage because they're already weak. So then when you go and you eat things and do things that make them even weaker and damage them even easier because they're already coming from a weakened state, like all these foods we eat that just cause more damage, more mucus, more congestion, more trash, more parasites, more acids, because acids burn and damage. And so then it makes the condition even more aggravated and even more serious. And and see, there's just many examples of where it's always where people, they get so they'll get distracted and they'll think, oh, they're having, it's like people all the time in our society, they think just because they have a headache that they need to treat it, or they need to find out why they have a headache, when really find out what's causing the headache. And it's the same thing as in these other problems we have. We need to trace it back and find out where the weakness is originating from, because it could be from somewhere else in our body we're getting a mimic pain from somewhere else, But okay, he goes on, and he pretty much, he talks about just like, another thing that I wanted to mention before I get on too much farther, is he talks about the next section, he says, no pain, nerves, no pain. He said, pain is one thing that brings most people to the doctor. It takes a certain type of nerve to transmit what is interpreted by the brain as pain. Although there are millions of nerves in the body, only some transmit pain information. In fact, the brain itself has no pain receptors, or no pain sensors. It seems odd that the organ which interprets certain nerve impulses as pain has no capacity to receive pain sensations from its own structure. It's like the proverbial shoemaker who has no shoes to wear on his own feet. In fact, surgeons find there is no pain or other feeling elicited when the brain is touched or even cut. How about that? Did you know that the same is true with the bowels? Bowel surgery requires anesthesia so that the surgeon can cut through the muscular abdominal wall, which is pain sensitive. Once inside the abdominal cavity, the surgeon can handle the bowel, both large and small, without causing pain. Now, you should begin to see why people have problems in the bowel, even of long standing and frequent, experience no pain there. It is not uncommon for people who have severe problems, even bleeding in the bowel, and experience no pain or discomfort at the site. Yet, as we now are aware, there may be and usually are problems manifesting in the secondary and distant site as reflexly stimulated by the primary bowel condition. And there may be intense pain in the secondary site with no discomfort whatsoever in the primary site, the bowel. And then also, too, you can sometimes, too, if you have real bad inflammation and pain, or inflammation causing things that's going on in the bowel, it can cause that, what he talked about, it can cause the abdominal wall to start to feel pain from that real bad area that's really, really bad, and so that's why some people, they'll say, but Dad, I do feel pain down there. Well, it's your abdominal wall that's feeling the pain, not your actually intestines itself. And see, that's what's confusing to people, and they don't realize that we think so much that, we're going to have immediate response from things that we may do that shows us that they're not good for us. Like, when we know that we drank too much, for example, we get a hangover and we're like, oh, that's bad for me because I get a hangover and I feel bad. But sometimes we forget when we eat certain foods, and it causes it to really damage our intestines, and then that causes us to have lots of damage and stuff. And when you don't realize you're doing it because you're kind of asleep and you're in the matrix and you think the food you're eating is not bad because you weren't raised up to think they were bad and damaging, then that's why these things get so chronic the way they do. But anyways, he goes on and he says, even though the bowel is greatly lacking in pain receptors, nerves, when compared to other parts of the body, people can and do experience symptoms in the bowel. The problem is that early symptoms are so ordinary, they usually do not receive serious attention. They are let go. It is not unusual for people to neglect telltale digestive symptoms for months or even years. This provides for intestinal problems to become quite deep-seated and chronic. During this time, remote areas are likely to become disturbed via the neural arch reflex. something as simple as recurring bouts of indigestion, chronic constipation, gastritis, which is just stomach inflammation. Anytime anyone tells me they have gastritis, that's just inflammation, because again, that ends in the itis. Anything that ends in an itis is an inflammation. Or ulcers can be the alarm signal that all is not well in the digestive area. Although these conditions may be early warning signs, most people will, unfortunately, just medicate the symptoms, choosing from a vast variety of over-the-counter nostrums available at the local pharmacy. It's any wonder that laxative and pain relievers are the largest selling over-the-counter medications. And so, but that's pretty much, what he's talking about. And he just goes on a little bit, and he just says about the breaking the neural arch reflex, and just says, the neural arch reflex activity is not only genetic in origin, but it is the cumulative results of years of bad habits. Everyone knows that a bad habit is difficult to break. The only way to break a bad habit is to replace it with a good habit. Psychologically speaking, replacement therapy involves the body replacing old tissue with new. This happens when, through nutrition, we replace the chemical elements that have been lacking in the body. Replacement therapy also applies to the mental side of life when we practice a better way of living. And working to cultivate good habits to overcome destructive one is a type of replacement therapy. The nervous system sees no difference between the good habit and the bad one. Psychologically, they are both established in the same way, because good habits, thankfully, are as tenacious as bad ones. Good habits serve us well in our entire lives. I've never heard anyone complain about a good habit. Even though all habits take time to establish, there is no time like the present to begin practicing good ones. Procrastination serves only to foster undesirable habits by providing additional time for them to become entrenched. So that's pretty much the end of the little reading there. I wanted to read to you about the understanding of the neural arch and why it's so important for us. And see, that's why I'm giving you an idea or example that so many times in our detox journeys and on our just health journeys, we sometimes don't give the bowels enough attention, enough understanding that it all starts there. When I do my iridology readings, like I'll give you another example that I can show you right here. Is I have also I wanted to show you something else. Well, first I'll show you this. See this little card I have? This is just a little iridology chart card that I had. It's just like a little business card, and then see this on this side. Well, see, if you notice, anybody that knows about iridology knows that is showing you have chronic accumulation of lymphatic congestion. See, that's a blue eye, believe it or not. Yes, that you heard me right. That's a blue eye. And that's major chronic congestion. And that's sulfur as well in there. And it could be other things. But also look at the yellow and the white. I mean, the yellow and the orange, both of those, that's a combination of several different congestive factors from what's been going on in their lifestyle and their medications and antibiotics and sulfur medications and things like that, But now, let me share with you. This is the iridology chart from Dr. Jensen, This is the chart. And I want you to pay attention now to the right eye. I'm going to get it lined up, and I want you to see something here. The right eye is where you see the pancreas and where you see the gallbladder. Well, look right there. You see that white line that I'm circling around? That is the bowel wall. That's the bowel wall, okay? And that's where the autonomic nerve system is also. Well, look at how the gallbladder goes right up to that bowel wall. That's what's called the neural arch. That's where when you look in the iridology and you see almost all the time I'm telling people you have a gallbladder neural arch reflex. You have a pancreas, you have appendix, you have an adrenals, you have a UTI or urinary tract. You have a bronchus and parathyroid and thyroid, because all of those are affected from the weakened condition of the bowels in those areas. And that's what Dr. Jensen talks about too, about the thyroid. And then also the bronchioles. Bronchioles are over here in the right eye. And then look at the pituitary gland and the master glands. They're greatly affected by the transverse colon. And that's why the master glands get so down and weakened over time. And then this is pretty much, and then of course the back can get really weakened. The bladder can get really weakened. the thigh, the arm, all of those things, even the shoulder. That's why a lot of you ladies will have fibromyalgia, is because in the shoulder area, it accumulates a lot of this acids between your shoulder blades, because it's also draining from your head down. And that's also why you'll see right here, the scapula. Scapula is the shoulder blades. That's the medical term for shoulder blades. And then, of course, you have your ear and your neck and your mastoid and your medulla and all your brain flares, which shows your brain congestion issues. But then now let's look at the left eye for a second. This is important to show you too. I'll get it closer so you can see it. Is that, look how right here, what's that right there? That's the heart. See the heart? And see how it actually in the diagram, it's actually right on the border of the neural arch. And that's very ironic, it really is. And then also there's the solar plexus and the thymus, and then let me keep looking. Okay, and then here, see, there's the urinary tract, and then there's the vagina, and then look, there's the ovaries. See how the ovaries are so connected? And what's that right there? What's that right there? See it? You see it, guys? That's so, hold on. It's hard for me to do this, but look, this is really cool. I mean, it's really amazing how it shows. That right there. That right there. You see that little elbow? Can you see it? That little elbow right there? That's that area that he was talking about in the book. That's the bend. That's the bend where, see, look, this is the transverse, right? That's the transverse. That's why the transverse colon is what always affects your brain area. That's the very top part of that's this part that goes underneath your ribs. That's your transverse colon. And then it comes down and it goes to your descending colon. That's your descending colon. And then it comes down, and that elbow is the elbow where it stops from the descending colon and goes to the sigmoid. And that's what he was talking about, how a lot of ladies, because it's right in that area that when you look, the ovaries and, and that elbow is right in that area. Like, I'll give you another example because I love doing these things. Here is another example for you. This is another one of Dr. Jensen's great books called The Healing Crisis and the Reversal Process, Doctor-Patient Handbook. This is a really good one. I'll leave it there for a second if anyone, wants to write it down. But when I look in here, and he has a great diagram again. But look at this. See how this shows you on the bowels? It shows you what I was just telling you about. And look right there. If you look right there on that elbow, that's the area, or no, right there. That's the area that he's talking about where the ovaries are. Because look, what right there, ovary, right there at the end of my pen. That's ovary, and then right below it is testes. So it's the same thing for a man. Then look, spleen is right there, diaphragm, groin, so see, and then all of this, that's the transverse colon, and that's where all the brain, see, the brain areas. But see, it's really interesting, and that shows you how so much that the bowels affect all of our organs. And it just goes back to show you that everything is connected. That's why you'll see also, guys, not trying to get so out there, but you'll also see things like this, a massage chart, and see it shows you how, all of these organs, all of these areas are connected. See, look at that. That's I can't read. I'm sorry. Intestines, colon, kidneys, lungs, stomach, heart, spleen, pancreas. Yeah, the heart right there. Dr. Morse was talking about, see, it's on the left hand, because you don't have the heart on the right hand because the heart is on the left side of the body most of the time. So he was talking about, Dr. Morse was talking about in class that you can grab somebody's left hand and you can reflexly massage the outside area of their hand or their left foot. And you can help them if they're having a heart attack, because it's called reflex therapy. Because what is it doing? It's stimulating the nervous system. He even talked about, there was this man, he tells this story a lot. He was in emergency medicine there for a while, and so he was in hospitals and he was around, and he went up to this man that was having a heart attack, and he pulled the sheets off of him, grabbed his foot up and started massaging him, and he came in right at the time when he was having a code blue. And the nurses were running to get they were freaking out and everything, but he immediately pulled off the sheets and started massaging his foot. where his heart reflex was, and it actually brought him out of having the heart attack, and it stabilized him. And it was just amazing where it just shows it's all connected to the neurological system and our nerves, you know. And then also here's the feet. You know, the feet are the same way. And it's very ironic, you know, my girlfriend loves to have her feet rubbed, just like most of you wonderful ladies, you know, and us men too, but, you know a good foot rub when you like one, you ladies, you know. But anyways, see the transverse colon, that's one of the areas where Kaylee likes to have her foot rubbed the most. And then she really likes it right in there on the side of her foot, you know, all in those areas right in there, you know. So that gives you another example. So this is actually a chart that I got from Dr. Morris at one of his classes. This was when I went to level 1. But it's just a basic, it shows a hand and foot chart. But yeah, so that shows you guys that is the reason why I'm always giving readings, and I'm showing how that the bowel wall, again, it greatly affects all of these organs that are in line with that bowel wall. You know, and that's why so many things, I even see the connection in the back, like the middle back and the lower back, and all of these things, the bronchus, you know, like we already talked about. I see it all day long. It's so amazing. You can see the connection to it all. You know, it really is. You know, but yeah, that's the main things when it comes to understanding how this neural arch system works, you know, and how it's so affecting other parts of our bodies. And I find it very fascinating and very interesting. But let me go here. Amy was here, or she may still be. Hello, Amy. You know, and several other people have been on and off, you know, just coming in, seeing what I was talking about. But let me go back up here to my my bullet points and make sure that I can remind myself of any other little things that I wanted to talk about in this subject. First, I went over want to learn what Dr. Jensen said was his greatest discovery. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. And then want to learn exactly what neural arch is, want to learn how this is all connected to your nervous system. Yeah, we were already talking about that, how it's all connected to the beautiful nervous system. And it all goes back to nerve pathways. And it all goes back to how everything affects our nervous system, not only just the energy we get from the food, but our environment, who we're around, the places we put ourselves in, what we watch on TV, what we television programs or movies. Because if it has a lot of drama, a lot of violence, because remember, guys, be very cautious. Anything you look at, it comes into your body. Anything you listen to, it comes into your body. Anything you smell or eat or drink, it comes into your body. And so you want to surround yourself with beautiful places, beautiful people, beautiful surroundings as much as possible. I know it's hard to all the time, but that's why nature is so amazing, because it has no negativity. It's all perfect balance. I mean, even when you see the wild animals acting like the wild animals, that's still a perfect balance of the way nature is. It's not the same as how sometimes we do our destructive things as humans the way we do, because we have a consciousness, and that consciousness is responsible for how we should act, unless we are corrupted by the evil forces. And then I guess that true person that's inside of that body is not really, it's being suppressed from coming to the surface, because that's what happens. That's, if you believe in spirits, evil spirits and positive spirits, that happens all the time. An evil spirit can take over someone and suppress their soul and who they are from coming to the surface to be that beautiful, amazing, shining light of a person that they can be, because it's suppressing them. And then that evil spirit or entity, it will use that person to do evil things in the world. And that's what's happened. Man has been corrupted. And sometimes it's the entity only just corrupts the mind. It doesn't actually, but if you corrupt the mind, and then that can take over the physical too. So it's a big connection to all of these things. It really is. That's why we want to be very aware of all of these things, different things, different emotions, feelings, food, diet, environments, all of that, And now I'll keep going and say, want to learn why this is so extremely important to have become aware of, especially if you, like 80% of us, have this condition since birth. And it's even probably up in the 90s, but I don't know for sure. I just know it's very, very high percentage of people in the whole world that have this issue, And then I said, Want to learn again why it's so important for all of us to get an iridology reading so we can see these issues in our own bodies. That's right. It's very important to get an iridology reading so you can see where you stand, see what's going on, and you can see where your weaknesses are that you've had for probably since birth, or either they've been getting a little bit worse as you've been coming up from birth, and so you can at least see where you stand, and you can see what you need to work on, and see how you may have more genetic weaknesses in certain areas than other people in certain areas, and that's also why you're going to feel certain symptoms more. See, that's what people don't understand also too, is that when you have these certain genetic weaknesses, that's the organ that's going to fail the first, because again, the bowel and where these original genetic weaknesses are at in the body is going to cause that weakness on that organ to become really weak if you don't change your lifestyle habits. Like, for example, if I see someone that has a chronic neural arch heart weakness again, and they don't do anything about it, then yes, it can lead to possible heart disease, because that organ is already being put so much under stress, and it already has those genetic weaknesses, just like the bowel does too. That's why we get so much bowel cancers and those kind of things as well, because the bowels are so conflicted from all the damage since we were born. And but then we have these other issues in these other areas because they're already so weakened. But then over years and decades, because remember too, guys, some things it takes a long time for it really to develop into a person to become chronic. Did you know that it takes 10 years for a tumor or a cancer cell to get large enough for them to detect it with mammogrammy? Which, remember, ladies, if any of you are watching, which I know you are, please do not get a mammogrammy. Mammogrammy is very bad, very horrible, and it's so outdated and it's not good. Well, you may be saying, well, Thad, what do I get? And what do I tell my fellow females that I run across in my life, or my children, or my daughters, or my daughter, any females that you want to get thermography. It's an amazing way where you use thermography to help to see the inflammation. You could like go out tomorrow, or you could go right this minute, and you could smash your finger with a hammer, and you could put it under a thermography, and all it's reading is the inflammation, the heat, the pain, and that's coming from the swelling and the acids that's causing that heat. Well, you can see when inflammation is the very, very first stages. You can see where when that stays in that area and it causes those cell damage in that area, then that's what can lead to cell mutation from those damaging acids, and then that can lead to eventually mutation of the cell, which can lead to cancer, because, or also too, that area can become so weakened that it can form a trash can. All a tumor is a trash can, an internal trash can that where the body has to take sometimes this really toxic poisons, any kind of toxins or chemicals. And if it can't get it out of the elimination channels because they're so congested and backed up, and you don't have enough energy and your body's not healthy enough to expel it out of the body, then it will form an internal trash can to protect it from hurting our organs. It's kind of like that's the body's defenses. When it can't get it out all the channels, it puts it in an out-of-the-way place to kind of keep it from hurting our organs. But then what happens is over time, is the body, when it gets weaker and weaker and weaker, it won't allow that to be handled and to be processed and to be dissolved away and getting out of the body's eliminative channels. It just ends up getting worse and worse, and then it can turn into cancer, But so that's why you just really want to address these issues in these places and ask yourself, is this something I'm having because I really have a true weakness in that area, or is that caused from my bowels? Yeah. And then it goes on, I said, want to learn what we can do to help this condition to get better with the diet, herbs, and ways to clean the bowels. Okay. I'll talk about that for a few minutes because that is an important part of this talk that I want to talk about today. Is it what you can do starting off? What everyone can do that is very important for helping to keep these weaknesses in our bowels from causing us to have a lot of problems is, number one, is what did he say? That a lot of these things are aggravated by toxic settlement. Okay, well, number one, that tells me that the things that we use that Alexandra talks about, and I talk about so much with all of my clients because I found it very, very vital in everyone's health journey, is the binders like clays, like bentonite clay, activated charcoal, psyllium, which is, of course, a fiber from a plant, but these things that bind and trap and draw it out of our body and absorb it and help it to come out, especially chemicals and pollution and even biofilms and parasites and heavy metals and all of that stuff, even sulfur. You know, again, guys, you remember that picture right there that I showed you? All that orange is sulfur more than likely. You know, if it's not sulfur, that is lymphatic congestion that's went from, it starts off white. You see the blue eye, how they have all the white in there? That's lymphatic congestion in the acute stage. Then it goes from that and it goes to the subacute. And as it gets into the subacute and the chronic, it starts to turn yellow. And then it goes from yellow to brown. And then it goes from brown to gray or black. Yeah, it starts to degrade like that. Same thing in our lungs. When we cough up mucus, it's the same thing. You can see it slowly starting to get darker and darker. And the more dark it is, the more chronic it is, you know. But, yeah, and so the GI broom and the psyllium pudding that Alexandra talks about a lot that comes from the master fast, you know, they are very useful to take for helping to absorb a lot of these, you know, toxins and accumulations of waste in our bowels and our whole GI tract. But the big but is you want to make sure that your bowels are moving well, though, before you really rely on it a whole lot. Because if you're coming from a place of a lot of constipation and your bowels don't flow real well, or if you're doing like a juice cleanse or something where you're not eating a lot of real fibrous foods, then you want to first get your bowels moving a little bit better, or just eating more, you know, more solid foods that helps you move your bowels to move good, you know, anyways. Then you want to first handle that before you start adding a lot of the GI broom or the psyllium and bentonite clay mixture, you know, onto your program. And then another thing that helps is you want to get a really good stomach and bowel formula, because you want to help those herbs that Dr. Morse has put together in a formulation. And as well as, I think Gino's made a pretty good one too, because some of Alexandra and several of you talk about in her mucusless free groups, you know, our main group and this members group, she talks about using those herbs and things from the master fast people, because they have good formulas too as well. But any of those people are good. I have always liked Dr. Morse's more, just because he's my, you know, original mentor. I like Gino and what he does, and I like the Master Fast, but I've always been more favoritism towards Dr. Morse because he's, you know, my main mentor and everything. But anyways, a good stomach and bowel formula, like Dr. Morse talks about, it's designed to not make your bowels become dependable on it and form addiction. It's designed to help you to take it long term, to help restore proper bowel function, to help restore proper peristalsis function, you know, the movement like a snake through our digestive system. And then also it helps to clean and pull out some of the mucoid plaque and other congestion in there. So it's really good to use a good stomach and bowel formula that's designed to use it long term, not just short term, because some of your colon cleanses you buy from health food stores, they are designed to just use them short term, like maybe 3 to 5 days, and then you're supposed to stop for a little while, and then you can start back, because they don't want you to form a lot of dependency and addiction to it, you know, because of some of the herbs out there, you can do that, you know, like senna. Senna is an herb that will form a lot of dependency, and it can also be quite harsh on the bowels too. You know, so some of the herbs you want to use, some of them you don't want to use, of course, for the stomach and bowels. And that's very important. And then also, Dr. Morse makes a really good formula. It's called the lymphatic capsules. Lymphatic capsules are really amazing because he has a lot of herbs in there that are in capsule form that work on the bowel's lymphatic system. It's helping to pull the lymphatic mucus and congestion from the walls of the bowels themselves. See, we talk about enemas and all these things and how they help us so much, but we need the power of the botanicals and the herbs to help to pull that waste and that mucus and that trash from inside the tissue of the organ itself. It pulls it into the elimination channel, and then when you take the GI broom and the stomach and bowel, all of that helps to get washed through and out your waste. So that's why you have a tendency to see more mucus, and you can see more sulfur, because that's another thing Dr. Morris talks about that he made the GI broom for, and the lymphatic capsules, is to pull sulfur out of the body. Which is great, because so many of us that have had to take lots of antibiotics and sulfur medications, it can really accumulate in our bodies, and it can give us those, problems, because it causes more candida and yeast and just all kind of problems, because it's a waste byproduct, again. And then you go down to, after those three are the things that I almost across the board with all of my clients, I recommend all three of those most all the time. It's only little occasions where I tell people not to use the GI broom because of the constipation. But if they have real bad colon and bowels, most across the board, I'm always telling people to use the stomach and bowels always. That's in everyone. And then also the lymphatic capsules, most everyone too, because I like how the lymphatic capsules really help us in our bowels, And then, of course, I want to talk about for a second, there is a lot of benefit from using using colonics and using enemas and using these things, and even a Kalima board, as the Master Fast people and people talk about again. They are really great and useful for helping to get out a lot of those pockets of diverticulum and just different crustacean areas it's the waste that have gotten in those folds and those cracks where it stayed in there for so long that it's gotten so trapped and dried and crusty, and that all of the waste that's coming through there that's more liquid, and when they weren't so constipated, because when you are dehydrated and you're constipated, a lot of times it's hard to pass a bowel movement because it's so dry. And some of the things we eat, it's just so dry because the food is dry already. It doesn't have enough water inside the actual food itself. See, when you eat your water instead of drink your water, it goes through the digestive system slowly, because that water is trapped in the fibers or the cell membrane of the plants. And when we chew it up, our teeth don't break it down completely. And plus, the majority of us, we don't chew up things enough anyways, that we swallow some of the fiber that still has the water trapped in with it. And then it makes it where that water gets absorbed easier into the bowel wall lining and the small intestines. And that's why they say it's much better to eat your water than to drink your water. And so that's a very important thing. And then also it's very important to take parasite herbs. Parasite herbs are essential to helping the quality of the health of your bowels. But you got to be responsibly prepared for the parasite herbs, because it's going to stir you up emotionally and it's going to make it quite challenging. And so you got to prepare yourself to talk to those candida and those parasites and say, you're not going to make me eat things that I can't eat right now, and you're not going to make me crave bread and cheeses and pastas and things like that, because I'm determined to get the overgrowth of the candida out of my body. See, remember, don't get confused, guys. Candida is not our enemy. It's just a problem when it becomes overgrown. See, that's the thing, is that most people don't realize we need candida to a certain degree, because it helps to clean up all the mucus and the waste in our bodies. But we need more beneficial bacteria than we do cleaning type bacteria. And but the problem is, when we take antibiotics and all these sterilizing agents, it makes it where that it smothers out the ability for the good bacteria to grow back after that recovers from that antibiotic. And what happens is, the bad bacteria, the cleaning bacteria, the candida, it grows back so much faster that it smothers out the ability for the good beneficial bacteria to have enough room to proliferate enough after taking those products. So that's why a lot of times people don't realize that, you got to take a yeast cleanse every now and then do something to help your terrain get so clean that the bad bacteria won't populate so high, and then the good bacteria can come back more. Now, what people do in their transition stage is that I do recommend people sometimes in certain situations that have really compromised immune systems, and their systems are really, really weak, and they're really dirty, and they may have like some danger of getting sepsis or really a lot of infections because they have, very compromised system. Then I do recommend some of my patients or my clients to use a probiotic in the early stages. because, you know, a probiotic is not going to hurt anything. Now, a lot of times we talk with Dr. Moore's followers and all them with it. He doesn't like those kind of things because he believes just in mostly the herbs. He don't believe in the isolated nutrients and the green, not the green foods. He does believe in alfalfa and the green foods, but I'm talking about he doesn't believe in the algae and he doesn't believe in the probiotics. But I say there's always exceptions to the rule. There's always situations where people do need those things in certain situations. And if it really, like, this is the way I look at it. If you have someone that's in danger of having to go to the doctor because they can get lots of infections or sepsis, and you help them to take a probiotic or some other natural things to boost their immune system, and you can keep them from going to the hospital and keep them from having to get the antibiotics and keep them from having to go through all that trauma of going to the doctor and the hospital, then trust me, that's so worth them taking the probiotics and all of those things, because it keeps them from having that added abuse to their system from the chemicals and the antibiotics, and also from the stress of having to go to those places. So again, you have to just look at it from a big picture and say that sometimes it's not all just cut black and white. You know, it's sometimes you have to be a good natural healer is someone that can be flexible, and it can help someone from a holistic approach, you know. So, but let me keep going. But let's see. Let's see. Want to learn what you can? Yeah, diet, herbs. Okay. Yeah. See, the diet again is remember remember what Alexandra and all of us talk about, and our whole main premise of these groups is to not eat as much foods that create mucus in the body, because that's the whole key, is that, you know, we have to live and we have to sometimes enjoy the foods that we have in the world, but we have to try to remember that the more we eat things that create a lot of buildup and congestion in our systems, we have to do things later to get that out before it builds up too much and it stays there too long, and it will start to get more degraded and more chronic and more stuck in the tissues, making it harder to get it to come out because you left it there for too long. So it's kind of like, okay, if you want to have a maintenance phase, or you want to see, like, for example, I'm not detoxing right now either because it's just been challenging during the holidays. So I'm maintaining myself as well. But as soon as it gets to the first of the year, I'm fixing to get back on board too. And I'm fixing to get back at it because I don't want to allow the little bit of congestion and mucus that I've accumulated some from just eating some of these, just even a little bit of seeds and nuts and a little bit of avocados and a little bit of things like that I've been having this winter time. And then now I'm fixing to get back on it the first of the year and clean up some of that that's been building up a little bit. And then now I'm going to move back into the heavier detox again, because this holiday season has been quite chaotic and kind of hectic, you know, with just so many things been going on. And so it's been kind of hard. And I wanted just for my stress levels to take a break for just a little bit, because before this this month of December and part of November, I was detoxing for 6 months. And so I was already getting to the period where I was like, I needed a little small break anyways, because you want to do that periodically. You want to take a little small break to kind of just be able to take it easy a little bit, not be so strenuous, unless you have a really chronic condition. And then you may have to just go full force, 100%. And I am going to try. I'm going to try to start from this first of this year, and I'm going to try to go the whole year this time, because I feel like I'll be better prepared for the winter time next year. And because I'm determined to have a winter where I can stay strong and I don't have to. I can keep detoxing through the whole winter, because I do want that long-term detoxing, because I know it's going to take that in some situations to really get deep down into the body. But you do, just like Alexander talks about, you got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them, and you got to know when to stay strong in your journey and keep pressing forward, and know when to say, okay, it's enough. Let me take a break for a little while, you know. But so just remember that with the diet. Just remember, the more mucus we eat today, the more we got to clean it up tomorrow. So that's why we want to remember the majority of the time to don't let ourselves go too much when we have these breaks, because then you'll start to really accumulate high levels, and you'll kind of, you know, get back to that state of high toxicity, or not toxicity, more higher pollution that you were before you started your cleanse. So what the idea is, after you stop cleansing, to do just what they call maintenance. Just try to maintain the best you can, and then don't eat a lot of things that will create too much, that'll make you backslide too much, and you can just maintain, and then you can move forward again. Because the idea is we're trying to keep going up the ladder, but every now and then we'll have to stop at a new level, and then keep going up it again, and then stop at a level. You don't want to slide slide back down because then you'll have to start again, you know. You know, so, but at the same time, some people need that though to help them to learn from their experiences. So embrace all of these great experiences we have with this journey, guys. You know, it's an amazing opportunity to just have growth, you know. But okay, I covered the main diet. Just try to stick to mucus-less as possible, or mucus lean as possible. Try to just eat steamed vegetables, vegetable soups, vegetable stews, a little bit of sweet potatoes, a little bit of, you know, very mucus lean options. You know, that's the best thing, like Alexandra and we all talk about. Try to not use any oils as much as you can, if none at all, because that's very mucus causing, very congesting to the system, you know. Even eating them raw versus even cooking with them, you know. And also they're very addictive, and they feed candida a lot too, because they create a lot of residue that candida likes to clean up, you know. And then I talked about the different ways that we can clean the bowels too, you know. And you can take many different things. You can even take and put in an enema. When you have an enema at home, you can put teas in there, like the heel all tea, or a good cleansing type tea, or detox tea, even a stomach tea. You can put that in the enema bag, and you can give yourself what they call a tea enema. And then you can do that. You can also use a little bit of lemon, just a little bit. Don't put much. Trust me, you'll know it if you put too much, you know, because that can help, because that can break up mucus and congestion, you know, and it's astringent. It's going to help pull, you know, on the bowel, so that's good. You know, the Arnold Ehret followers, they talk about that a lot, you know. And then also you can use bentonite clay in an enema. That's a great thing that Dr. Jensen talked about in this book, as a matter of fact. He talked about using the bentonite clay enemas. You know, I don't know if I can find it. Maybe I can. Well, let me see. But yeah, anyways, if I find it while I'm talking to you. But he talked about that, and that's something I haven't even tried yet. I've used bentonite clay many times, but I haven't used it yet in a form of an enema, which I'm very interested to, you know, to try that myself too. But okay, I can't find it, so I'll let you look for it, of course, if you decide to get the book. But it really can be good. Oh, here it is. I did find it, actually. Yeah, so that's cool. Yeah, I did find it. See, he talks about it right here. See, Kalima water additives, because he was so big about Kalima. See, that's what a Kalima looks like. You work with a bucket, and then you have this this board you lay on, and it goes down in there, and it goes into the bucket, and you can look at what you got out, whether it's parasites or mucoid plaque or whatever, if you choose to do that. You can also put this end over the toilet. That's what a lot of people, they're like, I haven't heard of people doing it that way with the bucket. But if you want to analyze the stuff and you want to see what you got out, because you never know what you're going to get out unless you look at it. And don't feel so disgusted that it's bad. Be happy that you see it coming out. You know, get excited about it. Be wanting to take pictures and stuff. Be like, look what I got. You know, because guys, remember, all of us that know how important it is, we all talk about how important pictures are. Yes, that's right. He has loads of pictures of it in this book, you know, talking about all the stuff that he's seen that comes out of people. So that's what I'm saying. Take pictures, document it, because it's great to, you know, show others, to inspire others of what you got out. Because I've seen some nasty stuff people have sent me pictures of that came out of people's bowels. But yeah, he said the very top one, he said clay water. See, clay, and then garlic. Look at that garlic. I can't point, garlic, and then also flaxseed tea. Now that I'm not sure I would do myself, because when you heat up flax seeds, you make them go rancid, you know, because they're very high in omega-3s. So I know that's one of the things I would not do myself. But the reason why he says that is because it's very soothing to the mucous membranes, you know. But I'll let you read it yourself. This book's real good, real nice. It's only $15 on Amazon, so it's real affordable, you know. I'm not sure how much it would be in other places in England and stuff like that for you, Lisa, you know, because, you know, but yeah, now, okay, I've gotten down to all of the things that I've wanted to cover that explains the neural arch. Now I want to talk in conclusion, because I love ending this great talk today on the way that Dr. Jensen ended this subject also, is that he ended it talking about the emotions and the bowels. And I always love talking about it, the emotional emotional aspect, and the spiritual connection, and the emotional connection, and how much we're so much more spirit than we are human. And we have to remember that we're not a human having a spiritual experience, we're a spirit having a human experience, and we need to remember sometimes to stop acting like humans so much and start acting more like spirits. And like Dr. Morris talked about the other day in one of his newest videos on YouTube, he said, too many people, they get caught up in acting like the actor in the movie, but they forget who's the director of the movie. And your true self or your soul is the director of the movie. So you want to do things. And remember, the true self is outside of ego. It's outside of identity of this body. It's outside of whether you're a male or a female. It's outside of what you look like, what color you are, what race you are, how you look, anything. That's all the body and the mind and the ego that's playing those games of living in this land of duality, of living as a human on this plane of earth, And so I wanted to share with you, just like Dr. Morse, he always ends every one of his classes, he ends it with a spiritual talk. And in this chapter of Dr. Jensen's, he ended it with talking about the emotions and how they all connect as well. And let's see here. I wanted to get back. Let's see. I wanted to see if anyone had. Let's see. Lisa said, I was going to see if anybody asked some questions, which they did. Lisa said, could you take a photo of that foot picture, please? Yeah, I'll be happy to. You can also, I'll take a photo of it and send it to you. I'll be happy to. You can find these online too. But yeah, I'll take a photo of it and send it to you in the instant messenger. I'd be happy to. Any of you guys that want, I have photos of all these things that I can send you if you want them. I even have photos of that, the embryo picture. I have a photo of that if you would like to have a picture of that one too. And I'm fixing to, I keep saying it, but I am going to do it. I'm fixing to make a post about all this, a real big, in-depth, topical post, but it's going to be so thorough. It's going to just take me a little time to get it put together, But Lisa said, I have thermography instead of mammograms. I also had a whole body thermography scan. That's great. That's amazing. I'm glad they're doing that in places where you can go get that done. Now, the sad thing is, I don't know about there in England for you, Lisa, but it's definitely this way in the United States. Insurance does not cover those things. You got to pay for that out of your pocket, because that makes sense. Insurance doesn't want to cover something that actually prevents you from actually even having the problem happen in the first place. Because if thermography will tell you before the cancer even develops, it will tell you, it'll say, okay, you got some inflammation in this area and you need to address that or it can become a problem. See, mammogrammy, it waits till the problem is so bad that then they're like, oh, okay, it's already gotten so bad, so now we got to treat it. And so that's what's so sad is that, they can't even detect it until it gets to stage 4 and it gets so big with mammogrammy. And that's why it's so sad that so many ladies, and then the mammogrammy puts radiation and all that horrible stuff on top of your poor body is already weakened as it is. It's just some of the things they do in the AMA and the medical system is just so barbaric and so horrible that we as humans don't stand up and say, that's wrong. We got to stop that. That is bad, and we're working on it. We've made lots of improvements. They used to do way more of this kind of stuff back in the 1800s and the early 1900s. I mean, so we've made lots of progress, but still, there's a lot of things we can make more progress on, But okay. And then you went on some more and you said, when you say to take the bowel and stomach herbs long term, how long do you mean? Well, it depends on how long you do your detox program. If you do it I say you want to do it for at least 3 months to 6 months, depending on how serious you want to keep going with it before you want to take a break. See, I don't really think you may every now and then need to take the stomach and bowel herbs if you're still eating a maintenance program or just normal foods. But while you're doing detox, you need to take the stomach and bowel the whole time, because it's going to help to get the mucus and the congestion and all the toxins out that your body's trying to detox out. Because remember, there's one thing that's very important. You want to keep the elimination channel of the bowels open during the whole time of detox. Because if it ever stops, that's when it's the worst time you could possibly be constipated, is when you're trying to detox, because that makes it where the body is holding on to all those acids you're stirring up, and then it just makes you feel like a big washing machine of all these acids and congestion that's being stirred up, and you feel like what I call the fishbowl syndrome, where someone goes up to the fishbowl with the fish in it and stirs it with a big stick, and then the fish is spinning around in a circle with the sand and the rocks and the little fake trees, and you know, and all that stuff. And he's like watching it go around in circles, like, whoa, what's going on? This is crazy. Well, you know, your whole body does that too. You know, it's freaking out because it's all these things that it's been working so hard to store all these toxins deep down in our tissues to help keep them from hurting our bodies and to keep them from burning and causing damage, because anywhere the acids land, they cause a little irritation and a little burning. So you want to help to, when you stir them up, you want to help them to come out as soon as you can, because that way they won't burn and make your tissue sensitive. You know, so that's why it's very, you know, understandable that you want to keep these main channels of elimination open as much as possible. That is your bowels, your lungs, your kidneys, your skin, and your I can't remember what the fifth one is. Man, I can't remember at this moment. But there's 5 main channels. I just know it's the bowels, lungs, skin, kidneys, and something else. I can't remember at the moment. But anyways, you also go on to say, I hope that helps you to understand why it's so important to take the stomach and bowel formulas, you know. And then Lisa said, when taking binders, the pudding or GI broom in the evening, would you recommend always doing an enema the following day? No. Well, I mean, yes, no. It depends again on how much your bowels are moving on their own, because I notice the more, believe it or not, the more of the the GI broom that I take, the more better my bowels move, because that psyllium will swell up, you know, and it will form actually a good bowel movement. You know, even if you're not eating a lot of fibrous foods, it will form, you know, it'll make your bowels where it's like, oh, okay, I have something there that I need to move on out. And also because the psyllium is kind of like, you know, it's kind of like jelly-like, you know, and it's easier for it to come out easier because it's a little slippery, because it absorbs lots of water. And see, because it absorbs lots of water, it helps that water to get, you know, it helps it to wash off these areas in our bowels and stuff where it has been a little dry and crusty again, you know. Okay, and so yes, I would do it definitely in the evening. I prefer to do them in the evening, and I prefer to take them like an hour or two after my last meal, you know, but it's not as important after your last meal as it is at least an hour after you take your last dosage of herbs for the day, especially not so much the capsule herbs, but definitely the tincture herbs. That's the ones that are most important, because the bentonite clay and the activated charcoal can absorb those liquid tinctures, you know. Because it's not going to absorb the powder ones as much, because the GI broom actually has a little bit of herbs mixed in with it, you know, and it doesn't have high amounts of the activated charcoal and the bentonite clay. Now, if you do like what I do sometimes, I have both of them made up. I have the GI broom, and I also have the psyllium pudding mixture that we always talk about with Alexander and all of us, and I have both of those. And sometimes I'll take a scoop of both and put them in my my mason jar. I put them in a 8 ounce of water in a mason jar, and I shake it up. I put a plastic lid on it. It's a BPA-free mason jar plastic lid, and I shake it up because you don't want to use metal. You don't want metal to come in contact with anything that has bentonite clay in it or activated charcoal, because it'll absorb the metal and then it can get it into your body when you drink it. And that's why you don't ever want to stir it up with metal. You don't want to get it out of your container, you know, with a metal spoon. Like when you scoop it out of the GI pack, the broom pack, or if you take it in a powder form. Now, some people take it in the capsules, but the powder is what I like better, because you get more servings, and it works through the system a little bit better. And you can take it in a larger amount, and your supply lasts longer. You know, it takes 6 capsules to equal 1 teaspoon. Well, I have noticed I see lots more benefits when I take a tablespoon every day. But you have to work up to that. Like sometimes I will do that, or sometimes I won't. I'll fluctuate. I'll go anywhere between 1 to 3 teaspoons, and 3 teaspoons is a tablespoon. And I'll go back and forth and take. Some days I'll take more of the bentonite clay mixture and psyllium husk mixture that we talk about, and then some days I'll take more of the GI broom mixture. You know, and sometimes I'll take a little bit of both. You know, so but the more of that bentonite clay and activated charcoal you take, you want to really make sure you're not having a lot of herbs and stuff in there with it, because it can absorb it really easy, because you got higher amounts of those clays, you know, because the GI broom doesn't have real high amounts of the bentonite clay and activated charcoal. It has more of the herbs and other things, you know. But and just doing the enema the next day, you can do that if you wanted to. It just help it come out easier. That's no problem. But sometimes though, I have a feeling though, the longer I leave it up in my bowels and let it come out on its own, the more that those things can absorb those toxins as it moves through those organs. And as it sits there, like, okay, for example, if your rectum absorbs a lot of the toxins from the waste sitting in the rectum while it tries to get a lot of the water out, and it concentrates that bowel into a solid bowel, then it's also going to do the same thing when you have all that bentonite clay and all those herbs. It's going to concentrate it, and it's going to help to absorb all those chemicals and all that congestion in that area where your rectum is and your sigmoid colon, and also the area where you ladies have your ovaries. You know, so that's all. It makes perfect sense why it's good to it's good for if it slows down a little bit sometimes. So it's kind of like, let your body be intelligent and know what it needs to do, and don't always say, well, I don't want it to stay in there long. I want to get it on out. You know, now sometimes that's okay. It is, but sometimes I would let the body do what it needs to do. You know, so that's the way I think about that. And then Lisa said thermography is expensive. I have done it privately. Yeah, I imagine it is. That's one reason why that it can be expensive, and that's why that they want you to think that it's not something you ought to do, that you just need to use your insurance and get mammography and just stick with mammography so that you won't keep telling others to use thermography instead of, because really and truthfully the medical association should be required by law to have to transfer over to thermography, because we should have a law out there that says that, okay, the mammogram has been found to be ineffective and is found to be dangerous for the human body, so out with the old and in with the new. And there should be a human law. It should be these laws we have out there that does not allow the evil forces to suppress us from having the truth available to those that are asleep. And we should have these people that are set up to say, no, we're not going to let that happen. If we find something better, and as soon as we do, I don't care if it hurts our business or not, because remember, they shouldn't be in business to making money off of you is the number one priority anyways. The number one priority should be is as soon as we find something that helps you to have the highest quality of health we can, then we're going to be all about it. But see, that's the illusion. If that was the case, then all the physicians and doctors would say, I want you to go on a plant-based diet. But you know why they don't do that? It's because then they would lose their customer. And so that's like cutting them off completely. And so that's why they're not going to do that. They're going to come up with these fake illusional diets that make it where you seem like, oh, it's still pretty good because it's moderation. Eat your animal products in moderation. And, you know, it's sad. It really is, you know. But okay, guys, after I answer some of your interesting questions there, Lisa, now I'm going to go back to the closing subject that I have at the part 2 of this talk today, and it's called the emotions and the bowels, and how this all ties in with it, and it shows you how that is really sometimes more important than all these things we do for the physical. And that's what I'm here to show you with this, is that this is what Dr. Jensen says. We have seen how the neural arch reflex operates and how nerve pathways can be established and felicitated from the bowel to other areas of the body. Now we must consider the neural arch reflex in reverse. Our emotions, that is, our feelings and mental state have a great effect on the bowel, so much so that the bowel in ancient times was called the seat of the emotions. Everyone knows that, although the emotions may have an effect upon the heart, it's much more common to need toilet facilities than a cardiologist when the emotions are accentuated. The colon is extremely sensitive and influenced greatly by every emotion, both positive and negative. Ain't that crazy? You know, we don't ever think sometimes about how, you know, overjoy and happiness can even affect our nervous system as much as, because it goes back to the example of we need to have balance, because it shows that how we can sometimes get too excited and too, like, you know, wound up, and when we gotta like calm down, keep it balanced, you know. I mean, staying completely 100% balanced is an illusion too, but you can try your best to keep it, you know, within as much where you're kind of doing this instead of because that was always my problem throughout the years, is that I was an extremist. I would either go to the extreme of doing something really, really, really well and trying to be overly perfect with it, or I would just not do it at all, and I would just be non-existence of even trying hard much with it at all, because I was either like all the way or nothing, and that's the way a lot of us are, and we got to find some middle ground to have true success, because I call that yo-yoing. Where you're yo-yoing back and forth instead of finding where you can stay more balanced, Okay, and it goes on and it says, this is because the brain sends as well as receives nerve impulses. Until now, we have merely considered how nerve impulses coming from the bowel can affect other parts of the body, but there is also nerves going to the bowel. Anatomically, the nerves tend to follow the paths of the blood vessels. They innervate. That means the energy invades and innervates the blood vessels, constricting or dilating them, as the case may be, as well as having a contracting or relaxing effect, or an irritating or soothing effect upon the tissues in which they terminate. See, that's showing you that because the nerves affect our blood flow and affect our arteries, it can constrict or dilate how well your blood flows through your body. Well, what does also that mean? How well does your oxygen flow through your body from your blood? See, the lungs, that's why deep breathing exercises are so vital, is very important on top of all this too, is because when you breathe in, you're using your lungs as the lymphatic pump of your body, and you're also using it to help your blood to have more oxygen. And then that oxygen that's saturated in those blood capillaries or blood blood platelets, there we go, they'll flow through the area of the body, and then the body can use that very oxygen-rich blood. Because a lot of times, guys, our bodies are severely lacking in enough oxygen, and because we don't breathe deep enough, we breathe too shallow, because when you over-worry and you overthink, you breathe too shallow, and you don't get enough deep breathing. Even sometimes if you have too bad of anxiety, you'll hold your breath, and you won't even know it. It's all subconscious. It's because of the subconscious programming from our situation and our environment, and our just being a human, when that's why you've really got to work on your subconscious state of mind and be very aware of your emotions at all times, And then he goes on, he says that thus every emotion meditated via the nervous system has an effect upon the blood supply of the muscles of the colon. Our state of mind, that is, our thoughts, can felicitate the neural arch reflex, especially at the points in the bowel where they are inherent tissue weakness. This is the neural arch reflex in reverse. So see, not only the food and all these things we were talking about earlier, but the emotions can affect these neurological and these inherent weaknesses in the bowel also, and then that's transferred to the organs. So see how it all goes back to the energy. The energy affects our nervous system, and then that affects everything else. Because all we truly are, guys, if you take away our spirit, which is pure energy, because that comes from source or from God. When God blew the breath of life into Adam, he blew his energy. He blew his vitality of what created all the life. It created everything. Everything that has life in it has part of God's energy or spirit in it that's keeping it animated, that's keeping it alive. We would be nothing but just a bag of tissue or a piece of tissue if it wasn't for that energy and that spirit that's helping us to stay animated. But see, the problem is that we all don't do enough things to hold the charge in our body of that energy. We don't eat enough high energy foods. That's why fruit is the king. It's the highest energetic foods there is on the planet. Number two, we don't do enough things to hold that energy into our body with our emotional state and our state of mind and consciousness and well-being and all of these things, our outlook on life and the current situations we're going through life. And see, what happens is that as a person gets older and their body gets more weaker and weaker, they lose that battery charge. Because when you take a person and you analyze any living thing, you can analyze it with what they call Kirlian photography, and you can see the angstroms of energy. That's what they call angstroms of energy. And a living fruit or any kind of living plant has very high levels of angstroms of energy. Well, a fruit has around 8 to 9 to 10,000 angstroms of energy. It's more like 9 or 10, I think, of angstroms of energy. Well, a healthy human has approximately the same. an unhealthy human has approximately, like one that has cancer, for example, has lost their charge so bad that it's dropped down to 4,500. So see what's happened? They've lost that charge that's kept them going of who they are. And now a lot of that charge is just from the emotional and the spiritual and the mental state, even more than the physical, because those emotions affect the physical. And then the physical, when it gets those emotions trapped in the physical organs, then it gives off those emotional feelings back to the body too, and the mind and the soul. So it's a back and forth thing. It's a vicious cycle, they say. And so that's why you got to break the chains of that vicious cycle in your subconscious mind, and that takes practice. It's not just something you can just think about and say, oh yeah, that'd be a good idea, and I'll try it a few times this week. And then you try it a little bit, and then you forget about it next week, and you're just so sporadic. You don't develop good habits. See, it's all about those consistent habits, like working out, exercising. Anyone that has a beautiful physique, they had to work hard for it, and it was the consistency that made the difference. Same thing with our detox journey. The more you're consistent with it, that's when you're going to see the true benefits. It's the same thing for all of this. Our emotional state, deep breathing exercises, everything. You have to be consistent with it to see the best benefits. Because a lot of people, they give up before they even try, because they're like, oh, I tried it a few times. It never did much to me. Well, that's because they never stayed with it. They never seen it through to see the true benefits that they could, see, And then he goes on, and I wanted to read just the last little bit of this, and then I'll wrap up this talk tonight. It said, fear and anxiety can have profound effects, for the tense colon may respond with diarrhea or constipation, as the nerve impulses carry the message of fright to the bowels. The bowel remains affected until the apprehension or fear subsides. One study that included x-rays of dogs and cats clearly showed the effects and association of certain emotions on the nervous system and the colon. The dogs placed in unfamiliar surroundings ceased to have peristalsis in the colon for several hours. And when the cats' tails were pinched, peristalsis ceased until the cats were once again content. On the other hand, battlefront surgeons are familiar with the loss of bladder and bowel function control experienced by soldiers exposed to stress and terror of battlefield conditions. And it said, anger and grief may cause the bowel to stop secreting and contracting, both of which are necessary for good digestion and for the evacuation of waste from the body. I therefore recommend that my patients not eat when they are upset or excited. In the same vein, I also advise them to be careful not to let the table conversations be such that they become emotional or upset while consuming their meals. Stress has no place at the dinner table. And see, that's where it goes back to, they talk about when you eat food, if you eat it in an emotional state, you eat the energy of that emotion, and you trap that emotion down in your body with those deposits of food. And then when you start to detox, you detox out those, or you bring those emotions up to the surface to let them to be healed, as well as the toxins of the body too. So it's a combination of both things. You just have to be aware of it. And then it goes on, and it's almost done. He says, certain common bowel disorders are known to be linked to the mental side of being. It is known that colitis, for example, has as much to do with the thoughts and emotions as with the bowel. In fact, it has been clinically affirmed that nearly all functional bowel disorders have a definite mental counterpart. Inflammation of the bowel can be exacerbated and even brought on by nervous tension and stress. People have much better bowel movements when they are free of emotional pain and financial worry. Good companionship, relaxation, and music can be stress-reducing and relaxing, and thus conducive to good bowel movements. The bowel has to be taken care of through the holistic healing arts rather than by some medication, adjustment, reflex therapy, or even diet. Each of these will bring some improvement, but the bowel will not function correctly until we've learned how to live properly. There is a right way of living, and it isn't just food and diet. It's important to approve of yourself and to get along with others, because when it comes to the bowel, it isn't always what is wrong with you. It may be who is wrong with you. So see, that's again why I'm just trying to explain during this whole presentation tonight, because that's pretty much the end of my presentation. And now I'm going to have the closing points and be wrapping it up for you guys. But my whole point on this whole subject is that we don't realize how much that they say that the number one brain is really in our bowels, and this is the number two brain. And it's because, did you know you produce more serotonin in your bowels than you do even in your brain? And so your true happiness is how clean and healthy and well functioning is your bowels. Because that's what the Chinese would say, your colon and your stomach is the hub of your body. And that's what Dr. Morris has said too. Your stomach and bowel is like the hub of a wheel, and then everything else radiates out from it. And that makes perfect sense from the picture of your eye, because look, this is the hub. This is the hub. Everything else is the radiating out spokes coming from the hub. So see, this is the part that is always, you can automatically, if someone's like, Thad, I want you to read my eyes, I can say, well, I already read them and I don't even have to see them. You got stomach and bowel problems. You either have chronic, which most people do, but there's a small percentage of some people that have subacute. But I haven't seen anyone that has any acute bowels at all, because they're always in the stage where it's just so congested and built up, and just, I mean, it's just really, you can see it. And it's all from these diets and these ways of living and stress and anxiety and genetic inheritance and chemicals and toxins and drug spots. And just, man, it's amazing how much the eyes can truly tell you what's going on from such a deep level. And also, more than just the physical, it can tell you the emotional too. It can show you the stress rings. It can show you where you're more than likely having some emotional challenges because you have weaknesses in the master gland areas of the brain, and so it's just really so amazing how all of this can be seen in the eyes. And when we learn about all these things, and we use that as our guideline, because when they say these are the windows to our soul, it's the windows to so many other things too. These are the computer screen or the dashboard of the vehicle. It's showing you the output on the conditions of everything in the vehicle. It's showing you, it's saying, oh, you need to change your oil in about a month because you're getting a little low on pressure. And so you can see these things, and and I like to talk and give these presentations in an entertaining way, because it makes it where people can enjoy watching this instead of it just someone up there just telling you these things in a teacher way, where I'm sitting over here putting you to sleep, because you never know, maybe next time what I'm going to say, just like Dr. Morris. That's why I enjoy watching him, even if it is a few hours at a time for him, because he's always telling you interesting things, and that keeps you watching, But yeah, guys, so I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. I really enjoyed it, and I really have felt like I did a good job at it, and I hope all of you liked it too, and let me see, I just had one other person that had joined, Trudy, but that's all, and I didn't have any more comments. But like I said earlier, I want to give you guys, the couple of you that are watching, if you have any more questions about any of these things, I can answer maybe a couple questions just for a little bit longer, but then I want to keep the video kind of short. I like, in Alexandra's group, I like to not make videos quite as long as I do in my group, because that way people will stay more interested in watching it the whole time, and they won't feel so overwhelmed with these really long, Q&A videos that I do in my group sometimes on the weekends. But some people tell me, though, they really like them because they'll go back and they'll watch them in sections, and they don't mind them sometimes so long. But some people do feel a little overwhelmed, and they lose interest because it's so long, But sometimes it's hard with these really big subjects to be able to discuss it in a short manner, because it is so complex. And I like to give people something that's in recording, that is kind of like a book or a program that you can reference this material as you need to let it soak into the brain and soak into who you're being. And so you can learn and see why it's so important, and so that's why I love to just, it helps me to time manage myself too. The more of these things I put out there, I can be teaching in video, not just in live and on the telephone all the time too, and so that's what I'm trying to move towards more in the year of 2019, because I want to make it where I can have more and more people that want to take courses and programs and things like that I plan on creating in the future, while even I'm asleep. They can be taking it by watching a video and stuff, and just all kind of things, fun things I can do like that. But let's say, it looks like I had another Lisa said, thank you very much. Oh, thank you too, Lisa. I really appreciate it. I'm so glad that you enjoy watching these. And you're always the one that's looking so forward to watching all these videos of all of us in Alexander's group. And you're always a lot of times watching in my group when you can. I know it's usually so late for you then, but I imagine too it's starting to get a little bit later for you this evening too. So I want to go ahead and wrap it up so I can let you go, and I can go on and do some other things I need to do too this evening. But I really appreciate you guys for being here tonight. And if I can help any of you with an iridology reading or coaching or any way I can be of help to you, just please give me a message. Send me a message on Facebook Messenger, or send me an email, or any of those kind of things. And I really hope you all the best for the holidays, and a wonderful Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year and all that jazz. And I hope you all have a great and wonderful, balanced journey to Wellville, and I hope it is balanced spiritually, mentally, and physically. And take care, my wonderful friends, and have a great evening. And namaste to you all, and I'll talk to you next time. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.